a new episode of Journey of a Christian Writer. In this episode, I'm going over settings, part 1, 4 aspects for creating settings. These 4 aspects are some of the most basic aspects when it comes to creating settings. And these include places or locales, time, weather or climate, and seasons or occasions. For the first, places or locales, I actually see these as 2 different things. Places, in my opinion, is pretty much the main location where a story takes place. I think this is often why people refer to place when discussing setting as where the story takes place rather than where the scene takes place, because the scene can be in a variety of different places. So that's why I see place as the main location of the story, meaning the town, country, maybe an island or a village, for example. And locales is like sublocations, or a collection of smaller locations within the main location. So this can be also a variety of different things. It can be houses, apartments, libraries, banks, restaurants, or it can be a football stadium, for example, or a jungle, because locales can also be exterior settings. All of them aren't necessarily interior. So it can be a collection of both of these locales. But that is pretty much the first aspect of places or locales. The next is for time. Time can also be a variety of different things. It can be time of day, meaning morning, noon, night, or dawn or dusk. It can be dates, meaning months of the year or days of the week. It can be numeric time, meaning hours, minutes, or seconds. Or it can be divisions of time, meaning past, present, or future. Time can also be shown by what point of view a character, or rather a writer, is writing in, to let their readers know whether characters are doing things at the present moment or if they have already done something, for example. But that is the second aspect, is time. The third is weather or climate. As we all know, there's different types of weather, and we can use weather in different creative ways to create an illusion within our stories of real life, because weather is something that is actually real, and it's something that we can use to relate to our readers and to pull them into our stories. Weather can also be used to set the mood of a scene. For example, a thunderstorm can be used to set the mood of a sad scene or a character that is in a depressive state, for example. So you can use weather in creative ways to actually convey or set the mood for scenes. Another thing that I think writers should keep in mind when it comes to weather is to actually pay attention to how the weather affects your characters, meaning how the weather affects them in the environments that they're in. For example, a character whose fingers or toes go numb because of them walking through snow, for example, or a chill that goes up a character's spine because of the wind that blows or something like that, for example. Actually describe how they are impacted by their story environments. So I think that's another thing that can be helpful in how weather can be used to create setting within a story. And finally is seasons or occasions. Seasons can be the annual seasons, meaning summer, fall, spring, or winter. Or it can be like different times of the year or occasions, meaning Thanksgiving or different types of celebrations, for example, like birthdays or graduations. I think this one is actually optional. However, it can be helpful when it comes to creating settings because annual seasons like summer, spring, winter, they have distinctive characteristics that are often relatable to us readers in real life. So it can be a clever way to be able to make your settings realistic and believable to readers, as well as making references to different types of occasions. For example, with Thanksgiving, for example, by using those different types of details that are often referred to that particular time of year, you can use those details and descriptions to relate to your readers in your story. So it can be a good way, seasons or occasions can be a good way to make colorful imagery within your settings and to embellish your settings. But that is all of the different 4 aspects for creating settings. I actually thought of an analogy of building a pizza to building settings to show the importance of each one of these basic aspects for settings. Because places or locales is pretty much like the crust of a pizza. It's the solid foundation where our scenes originate and where our scenes take place. So it's like the most basic and most important aspect for us to create settings. Time is pretty much like the sauce that we put on the crust of a pizza. It covers everything within the story. And it helps to be able to distinguish one scene to the next and for us to transition from one scene to the next. So time is a fundamental aspect when it comes to creating settings. Weather or climate is pretty much like the cheese that's sprinkled on a pizza, and it helps to set the mood and to create an atmosphere, which can help to allow us to be able to do and create an illusion of real life when describing our settings. And seasons or occasions are pretty much like the toppings, because just like there's different types of seasons and occasions, there's different types of toppings that we can put on a pizza. So that's why I made that comparison. And we can use seasons and occasions to add more color to our scenes and our settings. So that's pretty much why I made this analogy. But another thing that can also be helpful when it comes to setting one scene in their settings is just simply asking questions. If you're having a hard time with your setting descriptions, then ask yourself questions about where this scene takes place, or what time of day it is, or how the weather is like, or if there's an occasion that's taking place in this scene. And then think things through about what types of details would actually be within these particular occasions, or this type of season of the year, for example. It can help you to come up with some pretty creative imagery when it comes to you creating your settings in your story. But that is pretty much all that I have for this video. I hope it was helpful. If you liked it, please give it a like or a comment to the pinned question below. In part 2 for settings, I'll be going over interior and exterior settings and subtile details. Because as we know, when it comes to settings, it can be overbearing sometimes if we're not careful of how much description that we use within our setting descriptions. And one thing that can help with that is using subtile details, paying attention to things that aren't usually described rather than paying attention to the obvious. So that is some of the things that I discuss or intend to discuss, Laura will, later in part 2, as well as in the blog post on my Brainstorm blog. That's it for this episode, and thank you for watching.